Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. Let's have a look at Grado. I've owned quite a bit of Grado equipment. Grado makes headphones, in case you guys wondered. Um, I like Grado. I like Grado. There's, of course, some things I'm going to mention here which I don't like, but don't be negative. Don't feel that I'm talking bad about Grado. These are things that, because I'm a bit nerdy, and I've owned quite a bit of Grado, that I feel that they should definitely try and improve. But overall, I think Grado really need to be on the headphone market to keep it more in balance, because we've got this thing that they do, charm, sweetness, just how they may produce voices, instruments, that tonality, style. You can almost taste the music. I like that. It feels like something that that's built with your hands, and I really think that Sennheiser and Ultrasound could generally learn from this, because they generally have a hollow type of neutrality that's just so dead and more focused on the structure of the music. So I mean, they also look pretty damn good. Just look at these RS2Es. I think these are like some of the best headphones that Grado has ever made, and also a bit faulty in sound, but in a good way. Um, so yeah, I mean, they have lots of different models, lots of different prices. They're very practical because of the low ohm. I'm going to get into that a bit later. I think that especially people that are a bit more grown up and listen to instruments and voices and just want to like chill and relax and just have a more beautiful type of sound that is more evolved and less focused about, the black level and the isolation of the bass and the boosted this or that. I think that Grado will satisfy most people on Earth. So don't look too much into this. I'm getting a bit into the nerdy type of things, but I just wish that they would create a bigger coverage for the ears, because so many people have so many different heads, different sizes of ears, and I just don't like this thing where you're just like putting something directly on top of your ear. Find it a bit awkward and weird, and at least that you should include some foam pads that cover several different types of ears. I also feel that it would just be nice, like with the Sennheiser HD 800, that you can have your entire ear inside this contraption here, so nothing touches the ear and nothing puts pressure on your head. I don't feel that enough companies focus on this. So that would be nice if someone actually did that, like Sennheiser did with the HD 800. I think that's probably the best thing I like about the Sennheiser HD 800 is just that feel of having them on, nothing touching your ear. Your entire ear is within that contraption, and it just makes the whole thing also shut more and isolate sounds in a better way. But this is Grado style. I respect that. I'm nitpicking. Okay, and I feel that Grado can be a bit raw and stuck in the middle with their sound, so you get mental fatigue from that. And what I mean by that is, if you challenge the sound and you don't have decent equipment, it can become a bit too much. And I feel that it's a bit difficult going deep into the sound and getting that full range where you're going from the bottom to the middle to the top. I find that a lot of the models are a bit on the light side of the bottom, and you don't really get all the way to the top. It's kind of cut off in an, I wouldn't say an unnatural way, but I feel it's a bit rolled off at the top with many of the headphones, and that the mid range is, there's just a tiny bit too much focus on highlighting that. Yeah, it's difficult to satisfy all the customers out there because they're always going to complain about that in a different way. And I also find that it's a pity that all the models are so expensive, because I find that you have to kind of go with the RS2 models and upwards before Grado really becomes Grado. And this is like, I don't know, $700-800. It depends on what country you live in, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I think that everything below that is just a bit irrelevant, a bit empty, a bit raw, a bit generalized in sound. But you know, you could say that about most manufacturers. So can you really complain about that? Man, not really. But again, you know, it's this game that most companies do nowadays, where they just try and satisfy so many people and play such cast such a wide net over the market so they can sell more. And you know, I get that. You know, it's just that type of world that we live in, where you just want to kind of try and sell to every type of customer, and you can never satisfy the entire audience. Just listen to what I have to say. You know, you can't satisfy those types of all the small nitpicky things for all types of people. You just can't. You know. And I just find it a bit difficult with their more revealing headphones, that it just doesn't go quite as deep as I want it to into the sound. Detail has a tiny bit of a tendency of sticking out, being on the surface, not having quite that bottom end that I want. And it is a bit difficult, you know. I just find that, you know, generally with Grado, you have to kind of use some decent tube amplification, and I'm not talking about like a basic Vincent tube amplifier or something like that. I mean, you need to pretty decent couple of $1,000 rig in order to hear the Grado sound. And yeah, I mean, once you get into like a triode tube amplifier, you know, it does get quite a bit better with Grado, but I just feel that it can hide itself a bit. Play and it kind of leans, the whole construction of how they make their headphones, I think it kind of leans to you buying a headphone amplifier that only costs like a couple of $1,000, and then it has this like overly warm, generalized, forgiving, sweet sound, where it plays it a bit safe. So I feel that, you know, that's kind of what you want to do when you own Grado. Do that. But yeah, I think this is a valid criticism. I feel that they should make some of their higher models have a higher ohm, because when you have a higher ohm, it gives you a sense of more realism, more bandwidth, more depth. And yeah, it's going to be more demanding, and yeah, you can't then connect it to your phone and all that. But again, I find it a valid criticism considering how much they cost, those most expensive ones. So I actually think that they're doing themselves a disservice, still only having 32 ohms at the highest models that they produce. I think that the last 3 models that they make, or 4 models, why not have a higher ohm? You know, you're usually gonna get a more real, more depth-like type of sound. So I think that's valid. But I also feel that, having owned quite a bit of Grado, that the ear to metal construction does quite a bit of times come off, and that they should somehow fix that, so it isn't just glue into plastic or wood that holds it together. I think that they should go with a solution that is better than that. You know, it's I think they can do better than that. So yeah, I am a bit torn with Grado because I think it's one of the best headphone manufacturers on the market. And in a way, their prices are actually quite good. But you know, we all can't pay for RS2 models and upwards. It's just a lot of money, you know. And I feel that you kind of need to have the RS2 models, the PS and GS 1000 models and up for it to really be worth the while, you know. And I would like them to also include some foam pads that are like 3 or 4 different types of foam. So for example, with these RS2s, that you don't just have these things that clap on your ear, but also have the bigger ones from like the GS or PS 1000. So you get a more deeper bass, and it then covers more of your ear, so it's more pleasant to wear. I mean, I think that's a cheap expense that they could easily cover, because these foamy things don't cost a lot to produce, as far as I know, and I think they could easily do that. So they definitely make good headphones, so I can't really complain there. By the way, when Grado headphones break, it's usually this metal rod that goes into the plastic wooden thing, and I find that a pity that you just can't do that yourself. So sometimes it breaks off in a way where it just totally destroys it, and you can't even use super glue. That's annoying. Also, notice this kink here around the headphones. I think they should somehow figure out so this area here doesn't bend in. I think it does that with basically all headphones from Grado. That they should improve. The foam that they use, it has a tendency of falling off in bits and pieces, which can be quite annoying. So you end up having bits and pieces in your ear, and it can get a bit hard and maybe smelly or sometimes. So of course you could improve that, but I mean overall, really good, stylish, tasteful sound. That American original sound, I like it. Overall, I think Grado does a fabulous job. So don't look too much into this. Those are my considerations, and yeah, I hope you liked the video, and remember to check out my other 200 plus videos. This is me logging out. Bye.